communication possible, then I think companies like DocuSign should be able to adopt that and, I mean, help it grow even faster, to the point where, you know, the distribution mechanism for a contract and the security mechanism, the identity mechanism on the DocuSign platform is all flexible. Doesn't need, I don't care what identity tool you use or what identity proofing tool. We offer lots of them. I don't care what the communication is used to tell people about contract status. I shouldn't care which chain is being distributed if I want an identity or a security thing. I could use my own closed PKI, or I could put it onto a blockchain and have it happen that way. So I think, from our perspective, at DocuSign perspective, it's whatever is going to give the business value faster, because that's what people pay for. And then coaching along the way, whatever's going to elicit the largest number of components that can be used for these smart contracts. I mean, I think it's obvious that if you had a developer network of thousands of developers building very robust oracles, that is the catalyst actually making smart contracts happen, whatever network they get deployed on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, generally speaking, me and Tom have talked a lot. Tom just said exactly what we're doing, by the way. Yeah, me and Tom have discussed this at length, and I mean, yeah, it makes obvious sense that companies like Tom's that manage complex contracts through a user interface that orchestrates that contract, basically, it wants to orchestrate more complex contracts, and it wants to orchestrate them in whatever infrastructure is the better infrastructure. So then the first question is smart contract state stored in a blockchain a better form of digital agreement state? The answer is probably yes, because it's very secure, very reliable, and it's deterministic. So that state, once given the right inputs, will definitely change to provide a guaranteed result to the appropriate contractual party, right? So it is a huge difference. Like today, we live in such a different world that we don't realize what a huge difference that is, right? The world we live in is a very probabilistic world, where I have a contract with you, and maybe I don't fulfill my end. You know, maybe I don't pay, maybe somebody doesn't pay me, maybe something happens, maybe somebody changes their mind, maybe who knows, right? That's like literally the world we all live in. And the better world is the world where if somebody performs, they get what they're due. If somebody makes a commitment and certain things happen out in the world, then they fulfill that commitment automatically. That's a fantastic world from a contract perspective, when you can have complete contracts, basically in as many places as possible. And so then the first question is, do blockchain-based smart contracts enable that? I mean, they do. They're the only infrastructure that has that property. So that would lead us to believe that Tom's end users would want that. And then if Tom's end users want to do something with that other than move tokens, then it makes sense that they need reliable inputs that reliably trigger that contract in a way that maintains that determinism, that maintains that property of you will definitely get what you're owed if you do what you said you would. And that's, essentially that's where oracles come in, that's where chainlink comes in, that's where the ability to reliably trigger and reliably conclude a contract that's stored in this different blockchain-based format is what's needed and what's missing, and what needs to exist for the types of contracts we're all interested in to move forward. Tom, I think maybe there's one or two examples. You had an interesting example earlier this evening.
Sure. So a couple of years ago, I was talking to the California Department of Transportation. They manage long-haul trucking. And if you drive a truck into California, you end up with a piece of paper that you're signing off, depending on how heavy the truck is, like 6 or 7 different places. And their problem was they have a form, and they have a promise to pay from the trucking company, and they have to go through this process where literally the driver's signing off to wait for weights as they go through the state. The business problem was they're 6 months behind getting paid, because it took a long time for that actually to happen, and then get filed, and then the proper person to make sure the company's paying, and blah, blah, blah. And this is also talks to the term smart contract, because on one hand, I'll tell you it's a terrible name for what is actually happening. It's more of an execution engine. On the other hand, I'll tell you the term smart contract is actually brilliant. We used to talk about templates. Templates is a really bad marketing term, because people have no idea what that is. So if you tell this customer, hey, you could make a template that would actually do all that work for you, they kind of glaze over. But if you say, hey, if you actually turn your contract into a smart contract, it'll actually do that work on the fly so you don't have to follow to make it happen, then the first thing they say is, okay, how do I build a smart contract? What's involved in that? They may have well been asking, how do I build a template? But the word smart contract just made more sense. So basically, in their case, you say you have this thing that needs to be signed. We can do that electronically. You have a payment that needs to be made based on weight. That's a formula you can actually build. And you can actually preset this so that as this digital form goes through the process of the truck, following the truck around the state of California, it's automatically making payments. And this is pre-Ether, pre-anything. This is just solving a business problem. But it's a good example of an area where the overweight follow-up and contract administration is actually costing the state of California 6 months of being late to getting paid and having to hire hundreds and hundreds of people to try to manage it. You can see how crystal clear a smart contract in that case just makes so much sense for that business problem. And there's so many business problems that they don't seem obvious because we've accepted that that's just how it works. Well, you have to just take 3 weeks to do this because it has to follow this arcane path. So that's why it's kind of hard for people to come up with, here's all the great examples for smart contracts, so we've already accepted stuff that we don't have to accept anymore.
Yeah, I think this example when Tom shared with me earlier was a very interesting one where you literally have thousands of these truck drivers with data coming off of their vehicles. You literally have all these stops recording their weight, and you literally have a simple formula to decide how much they should pay the state of California. All of that can be made programmatic. All of that can be made secure and tamper-proof so that nobody can collude or game how much somebody should be paying. And it could all be made to work completely automatically. But it just doesn't. I mean, it just doesn't because for whatever reason, the confluence of centralized technologies that exist today to solve that problem, they don't solve that problem. I mean, they don't solve that problem in a way that people have adopted a solution.
And in so many cases, they don't really even know that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I don't think is obvious to folks in San Francisco and in places where a lot of people work on consumer stuff. I think I think the reason Tom and I and some folks in the smart contract space really appreciate the impact of the space is because we've ended up talking to the end users. We've ended up talking to the people who manage how an agreement works today and how its failure means that truckers don't get paid or something else doesn't happen or maybe somebody can't have insurance or some other real world problem exists. And I think this is the slight disconnect that exists in certain people's minds. Like they can't see the exact connection between how does changing the way all digital agreement works change how something works in a better way. I mean, I can understand that. Me and Tom, we work with people every day that they have digital agreements and they don't work, or they have paper and they spend 3 weeks mailing paper to each other, and then something gets lost and somebody loses a few $1 million, and then that means 20 people got fired because the company lost money, and then there's 20 people that are fired. Okay, not good, right? But so I think that the place I was going with this was that if you really want to understand the value of smart contracts and the value of the more complex smart contracts, in my experience, it's useful to find a use case or two that you can understand why it's important. Because it's not, those use cases are very important, but they're not they're not as immediately intellectually accessible as I can now send my photo to my friend. Like, they're a little bit more complex. They require a little bit more kind of like, let me really think about what this does.
It's also really fun, I think, too, because a lot of people talk, electronic signatures, that's a really boring industry you're in. Fall asleep, crazy. But what's interesting is we're taking something that was really frustrating for people and actually making it simple. And with smart contracts, it gets even simpler. And the impact of that is very interesting. I talk to customers all the time, like, oh, I love DocuSign, it's so cool. It's like, I love the fact you love it, that's really cool, but that's not really that cool. Why are you so happy? And we did some research, we found out we were getting credit for what they were actually accomplishing. I love DocuSign, my kid got into the university with DocuSign. Like, no, your kid did really well in school and signed a thing with the university. I bought my house because of DocuSign. No, you bought your house because you had money and we made it a lot easier, and it was really frustrating for you before, and now it made you happy, so you're really super pumped about it. And so I think from a product person and a developer, when you hear that kind of feedback from people, it's super energizing. And I think we're not done in the automation of this, obviously. Smart contracts are going to get smarter and smarter and smarter. The oracles are going to be brilliant. And then, then we're going to have to think about what's next after that. But the cool thing about this particular space is you're taking something that's super frustrating to a lot of people and making it easy. And the feedback you get is just really empowering. It's really fun.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, this just goes back to one of the points we touched on earlier. I think one of the big beneficiaries of this technology are going to be the people who have a front end that allows people to benefit from a better contractual relationship. That allows people to, go from, I always used to do these business deals where I would promise some kind of service, like a marketing service or some other service, and I would constantly not be paid. Like I wouldn't get paid for my service. I would have spent 20 hours that week and I wouldn't have gotten paid. And then DocuSign or a company with an interface came along and gave me a smart contract that got me paid. And now I do my work and I get paid. And I can pay my rent. And so I think at the end of the day I think it's a seismic shift in how the world works. And then people probably attribute the actual change to the interfaces they end up using. Because that's what happened with the e-signature, that's what's happened with a lot of things.
So Sergey, tell me how we get there from here. What are the things that need to happen in the industry, in the market, for these thousands of oracles to get out there and use?
Well, I mean, it's a cycle. So it's a chicken and egg problem. So on the one end, you need users that use the oracles, and then for the users that use the oracles, they need oracles to exist to build the contracts they're going to use. So it's essentially what's called the chicken and egg cycle, where you have to solve one side of the equation. So in order for the types of smart contracts that people want to buy, there need to be the oracles that allow those contracts to exist. So that's the end of the equation that we're just approaching it from. Kind of, let's make all the inputs and outputs somebody would need to build the types of contracts that Tom's users would want to consume. Let's allow people to slowly build those contracts until they hit on, the 5, 10, 15 world-changing, great smart contract use cases. And then that cycle will just continue. It'll just continue to the point that those 5, 10, 15 great world-changing use cases, those will change how industries work, because anybody in that industry who doesn't provide that type of contractual guarantee will no longer be competitive. So I think...
Where do you think it happens first?
I think realistically, in my experience, it's much easier to take people from, I already have a digital agreement of some type, to I have a better digital agreement, which is essentially what smart contracts are. So I think the place where it'll be difficult is places like, or take longer, even though it'll have huge impact, is places like trade finance, where people are still using paper. They're literally still using paper and bike messenger couriers. So it's very difficult to take you from that to digital contracts, to super digital contracts in the form of smart contracts. It's much easier to take, and this is really just a way of thinking about it, so it's kind of like, what industries already use digital contracts? Okay, derivatives and insurance. Okay, what categories of digital contracts in these industries would benefit from the unique properties of a smart contract? Yes, there are many different categories in these industries, right? Insurance has a huge trust problem where people don't get paid. Derivatives has a huge problem where they don't settle, they don't do what they're supposed to do. And these people are already using digital contracts. So I think it's going to be in an industry like that, where we're taking them from simple digital contracts to more complex ones. Does that?
Yeah.
I think we have a little bit of time left. I think we can
10
go.
minutes for Q&A.
We can go for some questions if that works. Yep.
Okay.
Actually, can we run?
We're gonna run a mic. Videotaping it.
Thanks, Adam.
First of all, thank you for doing this talk. It's been very helpful. Oh. So, I think I want your opinion on what you feel the relationship between public blockchain, which is I think what everyone thinks about when they hear about blockchain, versus private blockchain. The communication between those two, and like how we prevent like this kind of walled garden effect of happening with like we have Apple products and Google products and they have their own ecosystem, they don't intercommunicate well. And in the case of a smart contract, if you have these little walled garden private chain, on blockchains, don't interoperate well. You have to be more active with like smart contract oracles implementing like zero knowledge functions. And so you're gonna have to be more proactive chasing down, okay, well, how do we implement a zero knowledge function in these things? I think
I understand your question. The way I view public and permission chains, it's really just a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So the permission chains, as they grow, if they succeed, if a permission chain is always going to have 5 participants, then fine. Then it's some kind of intranet, and whoever's making that intranet for you, you better really cross your fingers that intranet that they sell you is going to be compatible with the Internet of Contracts of tomorrow. Because if it's not, you're going to throw it all out. Now, if it's not going to stick with that 5-person group, if it's like a bank consortium chain, then that permission environment will just grow, right? As it succeeds, say we have some kind of vertically focused derivatives chain, and it just wins, it just becomes the one. So now there's 10 banks, 20, 50, 100, 200, 300. And so the more it succeeds, the more it looks like a public chain, is basically what happens.
sure, but like from a privacy standpoint, on a public chain, you can see whatever the hell's on it. And I don't necessarily want people to know what is in my bank account on a public chain. I would much rather, a smart contract saying, okay, well, I'm going to communicate with this private chain, which has my bank information via a zero knowledge function.
Yeah, that'll make sense, assuming that private chain can process that and verify that, and that can be the role of an oracle. Essentially, the more detailed answer to your question, I think you had a slightly more detailed question than I understood, is that you can have oracles that orchestrate the relationships between the private and the public chains. And the way an oracle network like Chainlink views that is, where is the data, where is the payments? So if the payment event or the data event you want is in another chain, then Chainlinks can get that.
Yeah, I think now that we've established what the idea is, I want to know what you're going to do about it. Because as the person who's providing oracles, you're going to probably be the one that has to orchestrate between these walled gardens who don't want to talk to each other.
Yeah, so what that really hinges on is on the private key, on 2 things. Well, it hinges on the private key management capabilities of an oracle, because essentially what that'll mean is that an oracle, well, depends if you want to broadcast or just process things. If you just want to process things, well, then the public key needs to be permissioned. Long story short, it comes down to the private key management of the oracle and its ability to interact with multiple chains. So as long as you have an oracle that can securely maintain a private key, through security procedures like trusted hardware or other procedures. Maybe you snore signatures with multiple signers, whatever other procedure you want to implement, then that's key step number one. Key step number two is that you have an Oracle network, is you have a place that you can go to that will integrate with all the different places you want to use. Like as a developer, you don't want to be building an app and then realize, oh, I want to do something over there in that part of the world, and oh no, I can't, right? I can't talk to that chain, or I can't talk to that API. Like that's the world developers live in all day. Smart contract developers, that's like their world today. And so the first piece of it is a secure actual Oracle, a secure Oracle, not a piece of junk, a good secure Oracle. And then the second piece of it is a wide breadth of all the connectivity you would find useful. Is the general answer.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
So when it comes to binding legal contract to a smart contract, where does that relationship become fuzzy, and where is it clear cut?
I can take a crack at it.
I think this gets to what a lot of people have said, that smart contracts will get rid of lawyers. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think it's going to change what attorneys actually can do, because at the basis of an agreement is something we intend to happen. And right now that's captured by an attorney writing words on a piece of paper, and they spend a lot of time and a lot of money doing that. We need to now translate those words, those intents into code. So I think to that end, you're going to see lawyers having to understand code in a way that they've never had to before, because your smart contract is going to be based on something you want to happen, and there's going to have to be a one-to-one connection between that legal agreement and the code that gets executed.
I just think Tom knows a very good deal about this. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it'll come down to there being specific clauses that reference smart contract systems, like they reference centralized systems. So you already see this in certain use cases like derivatives. So derivatives, they reference the DTCC or other repositories that store the state of the derivative in digital form. And so what you'll see those same clauses, except they won't reference a DTCC repository. They'll reference a smart contract infrastructure under the name X. That's how I think it'll evolve initially. But then over the long term, it'll probably go through just like core precedents, is my guess.
Andrew on the blockchain of spices, and that actually is a beautiful lead into my question, that because smart contracts are auto-executing, you have the problem, one, of dispute resolution reversibility, and two, jurisdictionality. You know, if I've got something that's tracking spices coming in from India, and my counterparty in Tamil Nadu reports something there, the smart contract executes. When it hits Elizabeth, New Jersey, turns out it's not what it's supposed to be. Now I've got to unwind physical code and transactions, as opposed to before in a trade system where I don't pay until I receive. My lawyers can say the contract was established in New York, state of New York, and that's where it's going to have ADR resolution. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you handle the actual legal nuts and bolts of a smart auto-executing piece of code that can wreak havoc in the 90 days it takes to have the physical object catch up to it.
Yeah, so wreak havoc is not what we're going for. If you've written a smart contract that's wreaking havoc on your transaction, whoever did, get somebody else to write that one for you. I think your insight here and your accurate point here is that these contracts have fewer fallback systems, and essentially that is the case. Essentially, what you're doing is you're saying, I'm gonna front load 10% more time to get rid of 90% of the management headache related to a contract. Sometimes that results in non-payment at all. I'm basically going to make it so that this contract happens efficiently. So efficiency doesn't allow 16 fallback triple checks by some guy who gets paid 30K or whatever. He doesn't care, right? It just you can't have both. So you can either have a well-written contract that's very efficient, has reliable data feeds, and those data feeds are good, and the way it's written is good, and it's not a wreak havoc contract, and it actually provides that efficiency, then great. If your smart contract, like, let's make a smart contract that you painted my house the right shade of blue. That's a wreak havoc. You don't want to. Don't turn that into a smart contract. Let's do a contract that the truck passed the state border via GPS. The truck weighs this much at stop 1, 2, and 3 from very secure, cryptographically proven data feeds. That's a good one.
I think that, just to follow on that, that works well in advanced economies. If you want to see actual penetration, especially in emerging markets, you have to deal with the uncertainty. And so I would encourage you to think about that as you build your systems.
Yeah, I mean, one way to do this is you build exit hatches and you have people with signatures say that we're taking the contract to state X or state Y. You can always have an oracle as part of a multi-signature, where it's one of the signatures, then you need an approval from another person. I mean, you can do that. Yeah, you can do that. I mean, realistically, the emerging markets is where I think a lot of this efficiency will have the biggest impact, because in the emerging markets is where a lot of people end up not getting paid because they can't come to the U.S. and sue somebody even though the container ship arrived and cleared customs border protection and 50 other wacky things. Just like the person over here can't go over there. Well, the person over here can go over there and sue. The person over there can't come over here and sue. So the person over there goes from not probabilistic, they go from unreliable to reliable. So it's a big.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, yes.
Hold on.
Question for DocuSign. So you're a trusted company in that space, and now you're offering blockchain. So you have a blockchain offering in your portfolio. How's that going? How do you sell this? Any tips you can give how to sell blockchain?
Yeah, it's still experimental. I mean, the platform itself isn't built on blockchain. It's built on a trusted contract. Basically, want you to have the results of the contract go into the Ethereum blockchain today and build applications on that. That leverages the Ethereum cryptographic functions, etc. But it's all very experimental. I mean, we put it out there for our customers to ask to be able to use this technology, to start experimenting with it. But there's no, the best example we did a car leasing and insurance demo app with Visa to demonstrate what it might be like. And there were a lot of people who were really interested in that. They actually thought we built it, so they wanted to buy it after we showed it in Money 2020. But it was just sort of a concept thing. But there's a lot of promise there. It's just, look, these big companies that build these big IT projects they're kind of slow. I mean, they're dealing with thousands of customers, and the last thing they want to do is break what they already have. So they're just notoriously slow. I think you'll find in some developing parts of the world where there's a bigger need for that, where it might happen faster. There'll be some markets where this actually has such a fundamental improvement in business that it'll become a mandate. I just haven't quite seen that yet.
I have a question over here. So this question's for you, Sergey. As far as the network of nodes goes, beyond just competition and just like the rating of the reliability of the nodes, do you have any plans to have like a mechanism or a system by which you discourage monopolization of the network, where you get sort of like a bit main of chainlink nodes? Just like encourage like diversity in the network, and like, do you plan on needing to step in, or do you think that's something that could be solved by the system itself?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, our system can be viewed in two ways. One way to view it is the way I think you're viewing it. and it's an appropriate way, is that people are essentially, it's a new form of mining. So they're mining inputs into various chains. So it's a way to mine inputs and outputs out of whatever chain needs inputs and outputs, which if smart contracts go somewhere, is going to be pretty much a lot of them, not all of them. So that's one way to view it. Another way to view it is a marketplace where essentially the end user makes a decision about the security they're purchasing. So that decision goes along a few dimensions. One dimension is, how many independent node operators do I need? Do they run SGX? Can they provide me some version of zero knowledge proofs? Do they use some homomorphic encryption? Whatever other layers of security might be offered. And so the answer to your question is that, unlike other networks where people are forced into a predetermined mining scheme, in a marketplace scenario, a user can determine essentially the type of nodes he wants. And in that case, if an important dimension of that becomes, I want assurance, or I want different node operators, or I want assurance that different data centers are being used, or we're not just using AWS. I have a node that's on AWS, I have a node that's on Azure, I have a node that's on Google. If these types of assurances become important to people, then the flexibility we luckily have is the ability for them to just choose those oracles. So, how would that look? That would look like probably certification of certain facts about that oracle, cryptographically or through some other means, and then people would purchase that. And those oracles would be able to charge a premium for it. So the answer to your question is, it's what people want to pay for is what Oracle node operators will eventually offer. And that's, does that answer your?
Yeah, more or less. But if there's one particular really necessary data feed that only one node or a group of nodes has access to, couldn't they theoretically kind of guard that data?
Oh yeah, if it's your data, it's your data. There's nothing you can do about that. You can get multiple nodes to verify that one source, but if an official data source says, I'm selling my official data only this way, and they sell it that way, it's their data. We can't, what can we do, right? That's fine. If you need redundancy, if people are willing to pay for redundancy of data, then there are probably other places where they can get the same data, and that could work.
I have one more question.
Can you talk a little bit about who's buying from Chainlink today? We're all in because we're here, and it looks like there's a lot of activity going on the supply side. But I view you guys as kind of a leading indicator because of the richness that you can bring to this. So, as a leading indicator, where are you guys getting attraction? Where are people? What industries are people buying from you guys right now?
So there's a few categories. I think it splits between. It focuses on the folks that have digital agreements already. So derivatives and insurance, and then there's a number of on-chain financial products or various on-chain kind of crypto startups. So there's a multitude of different crypto startups that are building various contracts that need data feeds to function. And it's unclear as to which of them will succeed. And then after that, it's various industries where this technology is going to take off first. It's going to be derivatives and various, derivatives and prediction markets and betting. It's all the same thing. It's all different words for the same thing. Just so you know. So it's basically on-chain financial products, which is also the same thing. And then insurance and so those are essentially the categories where I think adoption is going to happen soonest. You can see that from a lot of our announcements. And then there are a number of platforms like OpenLaw and like others that are building interfaces where people construct the contract themselves, and then that's completely left to the success of those platforms, right? It's kind of like if people go to that platform and they build a lot of contracts, and those contracts need market prices or something else, that's one of those things that can just come out of left field and be a huge success. It's, it's difficult to predict. So it's really in three categories: derivatives, insurance, and then people building platforms that need data feeds where people can build various contracts. I think that was the last one.
Yeah.
Okay. So just one last thing. First, I'd really like to thank Tom. Thank you very much for sharing your insight and experience. Also, I think you guys have some slight clarity on what we're trying to do at Chainlink. We are growing our team, and we are looking for developers and a product manager. So if you folks have anybody who wants to get into blockchains and crypto and smart contracts with the team that's going to win, then I think they should talk to you. You'd be doing them a favor. Put it that way. Come back to you in a few years, but thank you so much. If you'd like to talk to us now, I'm here. There's a few people from our team wearing the Chainlink shirt. If you're a developer, our CTO Steve, he's back there. You're welcome to chat with him and discuss the finer details if you'd like. And I'll be around as well. Thank you all very much. Yep.
Okay, and a couple of quick announcements. First, thank you to our volunteers. They're wearing a Chainlink t-shirt, but this wouldn't have been possible without all the help from the community. So raise your hands and thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Galvanize, for hosting us in this beautiful, beautiful space. And then also, we have tables and space reserved at Southside, which is literally like half a block away from here. So after this, you have time here to mingle, but we know that a lot of times you guys meet friends and meet co-developers and you want to continue talking about the space even after this event ends. So feel free to go there afterwards. It's not official, but we just wanted to provide a space for you guys to continue conversation tonight. And with that, again, thank you so much, Tom, and have a great evening.
I don't know. I've just done stairs. I'm not sure about that. I've just done elevator. I'm not sure about the stairs back there. Volunteer I could ask Adam. Speaking stuff.